everyone, so last night I finished Mockingjay, so I figured I should do another Glitterature. My nails are actually really wet today, little side story, because I decided to do nail polish swatches. So I first painted my nails like a pale blue color, and I really liked it, and then I wanted to put this like kind of medium like pink on. So I was like, I'm just gonna put it right over the pale blue, because I didn't want to like take it off, because I was just kind of trying to swatch the color, even though I don't really recommend doing that because it is not an authentic color swatch if you swatch it over like a random color. But then I wanted to put this dark color on, so this is 3 layers of like completely conflicting colors. So my nails just kind of look weird right now, and they're wet. They're like totally tacky. I've smudged pretty much every single nail color. I probably should have just taken the polish off before this video, but I didn't, and now I'm filming, and now I'm just gonna go with it. But I probably will when this video is over. So I finished Mockingjay last night. I've been working on this series for a while now. I really enjoyed it. And I just want to say before I get started that there are going to be spoilers in this video for the entire Hunger Games series. Before those of you that don't want to hear about the spoilers, turn off the video though. I will go ahead and talk about the next couple books I'm reading. So I'm still working on Tuesdays with Maury. I've read about 3 more chapters since the last Glitterature. It's definitely not been the book that I've been working on the most, but I do read it every now and then. I am more than halfway done with Awakened for the House of Night novel, and I am so in love with this book. I'm like captivated by it right now. It's like one of those things where all I want to do right now is turn off this camera and go read the rest of this book. I want to know what happens, but at the same time I don't, because I don't want the series, like I don't want to have to wait for the next book, you know? Like I don't want the last book that I have my hands on in this series to be done. I am loving it. It completely took over all the other books I was reading. So these are the 2 that I'm really concentrating on, but this one will be the next one I finish because it's just a great book. So my next Glitterature will probably be on this one, and then I have a couple more books that will eventually kind of be read, and then I need to go back to the bookstore. Anyway, so spoiler time. Turn off the video right now if you do not want to know spoilers about the entire Hunger Games trilogy. Do not get mad at me if you watch. Watch with your own risk. Watch at your own risk. Ooh. All right, Mockingjay. First of all, in my last Glitterature, because I did talk about how I was reading Mockingjay, I did get some comments that were like, I didn't like the way the series ended. I don't know if you're gonna like it. Like it was kind of a letdown, all this stuff. So I was kind of prepared to not really like the way it ended. And I actually was really surprised because I really did like the way it ended. Let me just say that the last chapter completely had me in tears. Like literally tears in my eyes, my throat was all choked up. I just got so emotional. It started when Buttercup came back to the house and Katniss was kind of mean to him, and then they kind of bonded and helped each other through everything. And like I'm a cat person, so of course that's gonna get me. That started it, and then it did not end. And then the epilogue, like literally tears rolling down my cheeks. I thought it was an amazing end to the series. I loved that they are together in the end. It just makes me really happy. Although, and you guys might disagree with me, I don't think that Katniss deserves Peeta. I feel bad for Peeta because literally in the first 2 books, he's fighting for her affection and he's in love with her and she's not in love with him back. She is wanting Gale. And it really isn't until Peeta's taken away from her that she starts wanting him and starts missing him and starts realizing how attached she was to him. So I feel like she doesn't really deserve him, but at the same time, I'm very happy that that is, you know, what happened. Obviously, the author wanted to take the characters in that direction, and so she did. And I was very happy with the way the series ended and the fact that they have kids in the end. I mean, it made me sad thinking about how, you know, she didn't know how she was going to teach her son about the Hunger Games and all this stuff and how she had such a big role in it. And it just made me sad because it was so real. Like the way it was written was just really like raw. And of course I got all emotional, but I get emotional in books all the time. I am known to be a crier in books and movies. So it wasn't that surprising, but it definitely was a good ending for me. Out of the entire series, I would say that the Hunger Games, the very first one, was my favorite book out of the series. I think that the second and the third book I liked pretty much evenly. I think that the third book, Mockingjay, was a little bit long-winded, and about halfway through the book, I mean, you're literally still sitting there thinking, where are they taking this series? How are they going to wrap this up in a nice little bow at the end? They definitely do end up doing that. But I think that it needed to be long-winded because it explained so much, and it really had like a lot that it needed to wrap up. It had an entire trilogy worth of questions and what's going to happen, and love stories and triangles and arches that need to come together. It's so tragic and it's sad, and there is so much like human emotion and instincts that come into play. It really plays on the fact that humans are flawed and that there is evil in humanity as well as good. And it kind of is like that balance of good and evil, which a lot of books are like that. I mean, even Harry Potter is like good versus evil, but it kind of plays on it within humans, which a lot of those books that have good versus evil, there's a lot of like supernatural things that come into play. So there's, you know, vampires or werewolves or witches or, you know, all these different things. And in this one, it's really human against human. So it's a lot more of like a real story, even though it's set in this world. It's Earth, but it's like in this world that that doesn't exist. You know, they have like technology and stuff that we don't have. And another thing, in a lot of the competing series and like the teenage kind of fiction genre, you have like a boy and a girl that are madly in love with each other. I mean, think Twilight, think most of the books that you just have this boy and girl that come together and they just fall in love, and the entire series is about them fighting for their love. This book series was different, and it isn't like completely a love story. There's a lot of things going on in it, but Peeta is madly in love with Katniss, but Katniss is very torn between Gale and Peeta, like pretty much the entire series until the very end. And she really is pro Gale for a long time. I mean, literally like in the first and second book, like she's really only with Peeta for the sake of public appearance, for the victory tours. And it's really sad because Peeta really falls for her. And I think in a way, Peeta almost feels like Katniss is falling for him back. But Katniss isn't. Like, Katniss is totally, like, not interested, really, until the third book. I was always Team Peeta. I think that Peeta was the nicer person out of Peeta versus Gale. I mean, obviously. And I also think that Peeta understood her more. You know, Gale might have been, like, the logical choice. You know, he could take care of her, and he was strong, and they had known each other forever, and all this stuff. But Peeta just had, like, this kindness to him that I don't think Katniss was really used to. And he supported her throughout the Hunger Games and the Quarter Quell, which that bond right there, I mean, you throw two humans in something as crazy and treacherous and dangerous as that, and yeah, they're gonna bond. So they kind of had a bond that Katniss could never have with Gale. And I also think that Peeta's like character arch throughout the 3 books was the most developed. You know, in the first book, he starts out as this really naive, like, baker's son. You know, he's very, he's naive, he's childish, he seems very young, he seems younger than he is. Katniss is like a grown woman from the beginning. She's like the most mature, she's very pessimistic. I don't really relate to Katniss because I would not have done the things that she did. Like, I wouldn't have gotten myself in the situations she got into because I'm not a pessimist. I would have completely like looked at everything differently, and it might have gotten me killed for it. You know, maybe that's why Katniss survived the entire thing and all these other people got killed off, because I probably wouldn't have done half the things she did because she was so like hard, you know? She wasn't like a very nice person, I don't think. I think that she had people she really cared about, but I don't think she was like a very kind person. She's definitely not a happy person. But Peeta, you know, he goes through the most in the series. He starts off as this naive boy, but by the end of the series, he goes through the most, both physically and mentally and emotionally. You know, he loses his family just like Katniss does, but he also gets hijacked, he gets tortured. Physically, he gets tortured, and mentally he gets like ruined. There were parts in book 3 where I didn't think Peeta was going to come back mentally. Like, I thought he was gone. I thought Katniss was going to end up with Gale and Peeta was just going to be this lost, sad cause that was going to always be like, what if? I'm glad that he ended up being able to come back though, because he's such like a nice character and so optimistic, and I think that that really balanced Katniss out. Because Katniss is definitely not an optimist. Katniss was very torn between Gale and Peeta literally until the very last chapter. You don't know who she's going to be with really until like the epilogue. And even, you know, there was that conversation that happened between Peeta and Gale in the very end of the book where they're talking about it would be easier if one of them died because then Katniss wouldn't have to choose. And she's overhearing this, and it kind of goes back to her thoughts, and she honestly doesn't know what she's gonna do. Like, she wants to be with both of them, yet she doesn't want to be with either of them, and she's confused and she doesn't know what to do, and she's just overwhelmed with everything. It really isn't until like the very last paragraph of the book that you figure out who she's with, and she puts it into like a really good, she kind of defines it really well. She talks about how Gale had too much fire and hatred in him, and Katniss has enough fire and hatred and pessimism in her for both people. And then she talks about how she needed Peeta because Peeta was like her yellow dandelion or something. Like, Peeta's her light, and Peter was her, because he's an optimist, you know, he brought that balance in her. So I think that's why she ended up being with him in the end. Anyway, so I've rambled for a very long time about this series. I very, very much enjoyed it, and I definitely recommend it to people. Like I've said in previous videos, it is a little bit violent. It's a lot of it violent. It's not a happy society that these people are living in. It's a very like harsh world that they're in, with harsh rules and harsh games, and it's not a utopian society that you would want to go live in, believe me. But I think that it teaches a lot. I think that it has a really good like moral kind of underlying of the story, and I really enjoyed reading all 3 books. So I do recommend this series. I think you guys should check it out if you're into that kind of books. My book pile just tumbled down and squashed all my nail polish swatch thingies on my nails. Anyway, I'm not even making sense right now. So I do recommend this series. Leave your comments below on your thoughts if you've read any of the books, or if you want to read them, or if you have any thoughts that you want me to see. And also request for future glitteratures, for future books you want me to read and review. And I will see you guys later. Bye.